And a very good morning to you, Lagos. Welcome to Freshly Pressed 981. And Freshly Pressed 981 is a segment, a flagship show, actually, part of Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. It goes into detailed analysis of our newspaper stories this morning. And you can watch us live. When I say us, I mean myself, Valentine, and our wonderful analyst in the studio talking about Devoe Okorie. Good morning.
Morning, Val. Morning, Lagos.
Well done. Hear
That
that?
cool salary topper.
Oh boy. That booming voice and the golden thread. That's Mr. FB Allison. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, Lagos.
To you. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, gentlemen. Lagos, you can watch them live on YouTube. Just type in the search box Smooth 91 FM Lagos. Send us messages through WhatsApp. It's very important you send your messages. Send us messages through WhatsApp. It's very important you send your messages early so we can get to read them before the end of the show. Send it to 0809 444 0981. That WhatsApp number, once again, is 0809 444 0981. On Twitter, we're at Smooth981FM. Use the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. I'll start with you, Devoe, for this interesting story from ThisDay newspaper. Stop granting reckless remand orders to police. The Chief Justice of Nigeria warns judges. He said part of the reason why the judiciary is not getting independence that they've sought for such a long time is because they've been divesting their constitutional duties, and they've been given powers to other people they've been allowing influence their decisions. Really, he says precisely that he described the remand orders by the police to the police as reckless, and gave a direct instruction to every member of the judiciary that they should not grant remand orders in cases where police lack concrete evidence to sustain its criminal allegations against the defendants. What are your thoughts on this?
This is coming on the heels of the All Judges, that's the 2018 All Nigerian Judges Conference of the lower courts at the National Judicial Institute. We have to commend this CJN, that's Ondo here. He has been quite vocal and actually articulate regarding issues that have faced the judiciary. And all he said and what we're about to go into is very, very direct and important. One, he was talking about the reckless remand orders that are coming from our courts to the police, and he gave the instance and the scenarios where this happened. He said remand orders should not be given where police lack concrete evidence to sustain criminal allegations. So sometimes you know how people are able to influence the police and get them to go and pick up someone or keep someone detained, etc.
Yes.
This is rampant within our country, where it seems as if only the rich or those who have capacity
Who can afford it?
Yes, So he was putting a sterling reprimand against this, or where the courts do not have requisite jurisdiction to entertain the matter. So in the other case, whoever is bringing their issue to the court, especially in political cases, get the courts with a bunch of interlocutory orders and injunctions, etc., that just stall the dispensation of justice. So now this was one that was on one aspect, and that has its own import. Secondly, he asked the judges to visit police stations and remand homes frequently. That's the prisons and where people are under detentions. Because sometimes, the judges, they are custodians of some of these remand homes and co. And sometimes anomalies are corrected when they visit. When it's like when the president visits an area or a governor visits an area. Once they see issues by sight with themselves, they quickly deal with it.
Exactly, because you connect with it. Because perhaps they would have been detached from the reality of the situations on ground. So putting on a face value, just having to experience that yourself.
He quickly linked that also to the dire state of prisons within the nation. We cannot talk too many times about the bad, dilapidated state of Nigerian prisons. I visited one like about 3 weeks ago in Kirikiri, and I must say that Kirikiri obviously was better positioned than most of the prisons nationwide. However, because of the high number of inmates, and the worst statistic is that you have a higher number of those awaiting trial than even those that have been convicted. Why? This is all falling out from the inefficiency coming from our judicial system. He spoke about the financial autonomy, that it's only at the federal level. We're still looking for the state and LG autonomy. Then he spoke about the enthronement of justice administration at the lower courts, and that's akin to the same thing between LGAs and states versus the federal. Now, for me, though we have a very astute CJN, I am looking for synergy between the judiciary and the executive, given the fact that we have a legal luminary as vice president.
Yes.
We are yet to see that connect. We're yet to see the advance in the legal front as he did when he was in the Lagos state. It's not. We know that he may not have those powers as he did when he was in the state government, but it's only of it's of advice that we're giving this administration to take advantage of the egghead that you have as vice president. I mean, you can't have such intelligence at the top seat of our government, and yet we're still suffering. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Devoe. Moving on to this next story now from Punch newspaper. Fred, Ondo pays 6 months salary arrears to workers. Some of the workers in this report said they've been receiving alerts since Monday. It's just been dropping every single day. It seems like Christmas came early for them. But then the Ondo State governor who spoke through...
Christmas. Outstanding. Arrears.
Outstanding arrears. Now, the Ondo State governor, that's the Rotimi Akeredolu, who spoke through his chief press secretary, Mr. Segun Ajiboye, confirmed the payment of the salary arrears and said it is not, they shouldn't give him accolades for this. It's just him performing his duties based on the fact that he inherited all these arrears between August 2016 and February 2017. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so you've pointed out a lot of things that I was going to share. One, which they were clear to say they inherited this, so it wasn't theirs. The other thing is that this isn't a point of celebration. This is supposed to be normal. But in the way our states are being run now, it's like a governor that pays salary is like has come up with some innovative strategy or innovative accomplishments during his governorship.
Closely related to Santa, maybe.
Exactly. So it just goes to show the state of how our states are being run, because everyone is actually is depending on running the states based on the federal allocation, as opposed to developing ways in which the state can self-run itself. Every state is endowed with its own resources and its own peculiar advantage.
But he said something really important here. When the chairman of the Nigerian Labour Congress, actually in the state, Mr. Tayo Gule, confirmed the development, he made a statement that was very key. He said the leadership of the organized labor in the Ondo state has not compromised on the strike action, but only negotiated with the government, and also added that the government should not be waiting for an ultimatum from the labor unions before they yield to the demands of labor in the state. And I would add, on the federal, do you think the governors would really care to see that this does not continue? Because we keep hearing about strike action. It's almost as if the next time you hear labor is synonymous with strike. Would you see this going forward as a lesson to pick up?
So if you follow the trends, this used to happen before, and the parties would actually strike. So at least there's one step forward. It's like you're deviating the strikes, so you're taking the actions that are needed. So hopefully going forward, then you'll be planning ahead to say, okay, let me know. I don't want to get in this situation, but I'm hopeful, that there's a trend we're watching, and that's going to result in this things getting taken care of before it comes to states like this, where it's almost before a strike, or the unions have to come together and then put an ultimatum to the government, or state government or federal government.
All right. Moving on now to the next story from Guardian newspaper. Buhari approves enhanced salary structure for the Nigerian police force. It seems that salaries and they're still in the air, and the payments are happening right now. A lot of alerts going on, and supposed increments. Now, the president Muhammadu Buhari approved this enhanced salary structure when he met with the leadership of the police force yesterday. The senior special assistant to the president of media and publicity, Malam Garba Shehu, released a statement yesterday. He said the president confirmed the approval in the State House, Abuja, and it actually happened when the Nigerian Police Service Commission and the leadership of the force went on a thank you visit to him. How do you describe that for us, Devoe?
This is the real Father Christmas here. Well, PMB did announce this, and I guess it's long overdue amid the funding dynamics, which practically every sector now is crying for increase in funding. Now, this concerns the police in actual fact, and he did make some very categoric statements, which I think we need to break down. Buhari did mention that from Taraba to Sokoto, from south to south, south to north, people don't feel secure until they see the military. That is a very telling statement of how the police have fallen into the shadows of the military, because the police do have a strong role. And he then went on to explain that he hopes that this will improve efficiency. Now, I need to discuss what he meant by efficiency and whether increasing the salary would bring that about. And then he mentioned that the military should be reserved for higher tasks. The police should be able to cope with the challenges of armed robbery, kidnapping, ransom, and crimes. Now, basically, the police are charged with their mandate of internal security. Actually, the military are only mandated on things that affect our external sovereignty, that affect us when we're having insurgents from outside. So sometimes, yes, maybe in terrorist activities and co. But to a large extent, if we look at the biggest challenges that this administration had in terms of the herdsman-farmer clashes and the banditry that has taken place, the police haven't been able to. And what we've had was widespread exercises and operations of the military, as you do know. Now, that should not be the case. And when that becomes the norm, what it means is that you've quietly, more or less, unitized your police. Now, I think in this angle, he then went on to say that maybe there's the need to amplify the question of more men. I don't like the president talking this way. I need the president speaking more definitively, because this is a major problem. The beginning of security in any country is internal security, how the government is able to enforce the laws and able to maintain law and order. He made mention that, in every town and villages there are the presence of police. Error. In every town and village, there is not the presence of police. That is why most times you hear the cases of the bandits have come, they've raided,
and then we hear,
for 2 or 3 days.
And it seems usually sometimes the first responders are the vigilante
Yes.
the group. And then that poses a major question as to how consolidated the police force is in those areas and controlling those areas, because those are it's supposed to be in their purview.
They are far away. There are communities that don't even have an inkling of policemen. And in some cases where the police exist, it's just one mud shop. And then how well are those police geared up to defend?
But doesn't it go beyond just salaries? I mean, look at equipment, infrastructure. The police, we find sometimes some vans that are parked on stones.
Now you see what I expect is, and this is where the president needs help on. We do need a government that is active, a government that has an understanding of the sense of urgency required. There's a Minister of Internal Affairs who presides over the police and some other parastatus. That's Bozimo. We've not heard from Bozimo. Remember when last Bozimo spoke? Sorry, not Bozimo, Dambazao. Sorry, excuse me for that. Dambazao is the Minister of Internal Affairs. He's the one meant to be speaking. We need to see some activity. They have a few months left, and I would like to say that I have not seen effective administration coming from the Minister of Internal Affairs regarding the issues. Just this top-up, it almost looks like a what do you call it? A carrot stick, yes, just before elections to get them happy. And mind you, I know the police are not deceived, because they've been crying, weeping, declaring. They've literally have gone on their own. And I speak once again to Nigerian people: when you do see the police, please understand that there are Nigerians like you who are under conditions that they can't even control. So have an eye and a perspective to support them rather than criticizing them most times.
There's a human angle to that. Thank you very much, Devoe. Moving on now to this next story from Guardian newspaper. EFCC rejects Ganduje's $10 million naira. I keep saying dollar because when I hear Ganduje, I think dollars.
One Ganduje is equal to $1.
10 million naira donation. So when I saw this news yesterday, I had to be patient. I was just holding on very strongly until I see it in more papers and where I can verify for sure. But then now this morning it's on air, almost every paper. Apparently, let me just give you a short background to that. So the corruption, the anti-graft agencies have come together, to prepare for a novelty, a national anti-corruption marathon. sports events, and then they sought donations from different quarters. And who swoops in first to save the day? The governor, Ganduje. He reportedly donated money to EFCC, ICPC, that is Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, and some other anti-graft agencies for the same event to the tune of 10 million naira. And this is the same one, the same Ganduje who was caught on a videotape collecting bribe.
Allegedly. Since we don't have eyes.
So the headline and the news article itself kind of differ. It says the reject, right? But the article says that first, actually, from EFCC's position, they claim they never received cash from any government, and they don't even receive support from governors. They receive from state government in the place of land, and vehicles or land so they can build their offices and stuff like that. And then so you look at that part from there, like EFCC is saying they don't have any knowledge of this cash donation, and they haven't even received cash. They don't even receive cash donations from governors. They receive donations from government in the place of land and vehicles. Then it's like the as you said, governor is people are stating that not only did he donate, he actually supports
the fight
this whole
against corruption.
fight against corruption,
which is the point I wanted you to get to. I mean,
this whole fight against corruption.
This is still an allegation, both the bribery and all that, but the brazen act of,
it's like anything. So the governor is a politician, and if you think about it, if you want to play PR with any bad state position and all, you would work at enhancing the group that seems to be who your campaign or your PR is going to teach you to finance or work against the guys that are supposed to be working against
Fred,
you.
Let me remind you very quickly that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has said that it cannot probe the Kano State governor who's under this allegation just because he's still enjoying immunity, a constitutional immunity from criminal proceedings, and this is happening at this time. Do you think they would see it as an act of bribe, outright bribe? I mean, this donation in itself, or apparent attempt to donate for this cause?
Not necessarily. It could. So, because if they're denying they didn't receive cash, it could be seen as bribe. But at the barest minimum, it's seen as a PR stunt, which they're not allowing to fly. We are not going to fly with this because this will stain EFCC in of itself.
Most definitely.
So what is 10 million naira worth to you in losing your whole direction?
In the face of integrity and all.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this next one from Vanguard newspaper. A cut overhead costs, federal government urges states. The federal government has called on state governments to reduce unnecessary overhead costs and enthrone a fiscal discipline. Who's saying this is the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Zainab Ahmed. She made this call yesterday and asked governors to really come together. And reminded them that the president has a political will and has been very supportive in the drive to explore other relevant revenue sources to boost the nation's income. Said the reliance of oil is fast running out. Devoe, what are your thoughts on this?
The Minister of Finance, that is Mrs. Zainab Ahmed, actually gave a lecture, as I put it, on fiscal discipline and probity. This was at a conference in the National Council of Finance and Economic Development in Kaduna. And before I break down, my take on this is everything she said will fall on deaf ears because she said all the right things, but to the wrong people. Now she was calling she listed a few things that are required to ensure that we have some efficiency in our finances. Now she started with financial conduct that states should put together cost-effective strategies to build their IGRs, okay? Given the fact that we're looking at the over-dependency on oil,
yes,
and the need for diversification, and that in turn the federal government would ensure accountability and distribution in the revenues that come to the federal accounts. She also encouraged the states to reduce unnecessary overheads,
yes,
right, and enthrone discipline and transparency. Now, yes, one would say physician heal thyself, because there are issues that the federal government has not been so transparent about. However, with the use of the TSA, to an extent, the federal government has secured a channel whereby all proceeds go into the federation account. Now, where it matters, there are some parastatals, some NDAs that have been, what do you call it? That have been exempted from that, like the NMPC and the military. And those are defense and or the oil and gas sector are two key zones which I expect this government, which claimed anti-corruption, to put their searchlights on. Why they decided to exempt those two, that is a later question we, the constituencies, need to question ourselves and them about. Now, she actually asked the states in terms of ideas to leverage on sectors lying fallow. And this is where we claim that states are living like ostriches. All Nigerian states have abundant amounts of solid minerals. It would shock you. It would shock you to the extent that Nigerians' land is filled with solid minerals. But because untapped, but because maybe our concentration, we believe that the work is being done with the oil and gas sector, we don't do the needful. And you know, 3/4 of our states are already indebted. Many of them can't pay their salaries on time. There's that issue. So at the end of the day, who was she meant to be discussing to? The finance commissioners really can't do much. We expect the governors. The truth is, this lecture that she gave should have come to the people, because we were meant to hold not only our governors accountable, the state assemblies, who most people have forgotten exist. They only show up at the time of elections and maybe put up 1 or 2 posters outside there, buy rice and beans and share. But these are the people that actually would control the capacity of their state governments to be able to deliver these dividends.
Yes.
Well, what do I know?
Perhaps they will work in the light of the elections. Now, let's move on now to talk about more strike, as, again, ASUU federal government's meeting ends in a deadlock. They met yet again yesterday. They said the meeting started at about 5:30 p.m. and yet they haven't reached a conclusive agreement. As it is, students are not back to the campuses and classes. We seem to have been, over time, undermined the vast importance of education in our system, because that is where these tenets, these statutes are ingrained in the minds and hearts of the growing population, especially those who are touted to be the leaders of tomorrow. Freda, what are your thoughts on this?
So it's quite interesting. When I read this article, one of the things I wanted to address is like, who really is the victim here? Because you kind of shared on that just now. It's like, is it the lecturers? Is it the students? Is it the working population? Or is it the society at large, right? Because we've been hearing about ASUU strikes since, like, what, they started like 90s, and we're still dealing with issues that have not been, every government comes, there's strikes, and then we don't address this. Even in the article, it's like the House of Rep Committee on Tertiary Education appeals to the federal government and the ASUU body to resolve this. They are appealing, you know. So it's like, at the end of the day, we know the universities, right, are underserving the population that needs to even go to universities, right? And then the people that actually end up making it into the universities are not even able to, you know, complete their education or get a proper, what would I call it, a proper length of educating time, I would call it. And it's like, who really is suffering here? Because the students are paying to go to school, right?
But then the lecturers or the student bodies, ASUU is really asking for improved funding for the universities, to run the universities, and many times they've been receiving calls for autonomy for federal universities and universities across board. I mean, do you think, as it is right now, this is a call that's been going on for several months. The federal government seems to be going back and forth with them. How do we resolve this issue vis-a-vis making sure that, you know, they do not have to resort to going on strike to get their demands met?
From this conversation, although there was a deadlock, from what the representative, the national president of ASUU said, is that we're going to continue talking. So it doesn't say they're going on strike. The next action is they're going to talk again. Okay. They're going to meet like in 2 weeks or so, and they're going to have another date where they're going to continue talking. So but it just goes to the thing, as you said, the issue here is that obviously universities can't be run by federal government alone. there has to be other sources of funding, and that has to be what we need to develop. What ways can we start funding schools beyond just the federal government?
Thank you very much, Fred, for that one. Move on to this next story very quickly from Daily Times newspaper. Judge the social media bloggers spread wrong news, go to jail. Justice Chukwujeku Anike of the Federal High Court in Lagos in Ikoyi on yesterday warned operators of social media platforms to desist from spreading and giving wrong news interpretation of ongoing court proceedings so as not to be liable to contempt. Devoe, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is a case that came up recently here in the Ikoyi Magistrate Court, the High Court,
Yes.
whereby there was an arraignment and rearrangement of Senator Peter Moboshi, representing Delta North Senatorial District. He was brought to court by the EFCC on the allegations that there was a purchase he made recently of property, about 805 million, and about 322 out of that was illicit funds from fraud. Now, during the proceedings where the various witnesses came up, the prosecution brought it to the notice of the courts that there were social media feeds that one of the witnesses, Prince Buhari Okorie, was on his way to prison, and this was worrisome, and obstruction to the administration of justice, did not represent the truth as to the proceedings, and asked the alleged party to say something about it because he was accused of having a connection with those that published it. Well, Senator Peter said no, he didn't have any relationship and that he didn't ask anyone to publish those things on his behalf. So in turn, the judge did warn and send a warning out that parties who go about discussing ongoing proceedings on the social media platforms when a final decision has not been reached will be charged for contempt. Now, the issue here is basically that, there's been a misunderstood attack on free expression.
Yes.
And there's a difference, even though the courts did acknowledge the fact that there were media journalists, legal journalist reporters who have been reporting properly, but they are having challenges with the social media where it's an all-comers affair. Now, for some time now, Nigeria especially, just like in other countries, there's been this brouhaha over social media regulation, to be or not to be. Even there's one in the House of Assembly already, which has passed first reading. Attacks have come from the courts, as you can see in this case. The military has even had its own issue when people go about saying things that they don't agree with. They've almost given some very stern warnings.
Yes, but we find that this is just not, the problem of the public necessarily taking advantage of this tool. We still find some politicians making use of this medium.
That was the last angle that I went to. And apart, even beyond the propaganda, whereby some people believe, just like you heard those remand orders, politicians go after those who write against them.
Yes.
And in this season of electioneering, the season is ripe, especially
Definitely.
for, if you remember, some parties were known for social media trolls in the last campaign. So it is a call also to caution for those who actually do utilize these mediums and channels. Please ensure that you verify your information. Abstain from being the troll that keeps passing along fake news or information that's not justified. And we will see how best we can control it and keep it into some level of sanity and decency before the next election takes place.
All right, so as a means of mention, for that purpose, let's just mention this news from New Telegraph newspaper, Oyo ADC in the heat of leadership crisis. You see cross-carpeting, you see drama going on. Fred, summarize the story for us, please.
So it's just a case of normal what you see in a political party.
2019.
Exactly. People leave APC, go to ADC. People leave PDP, go to ADC, and then it's the same issue where they're enforcing their own candidates on the party. They didn't go through dual process, and this speaks to our whole issue to start with. Like the person comes in, is he equipped?
So if the party is not ready now, when are they going to be ready? Maybe the next.
This is our typical being ready. No, so it's not that they're not ready.
Thank you very much. We have a message in from Benson. Benson says, how does the CGN ensure his directives are followed? If none, this remains a theory, not practical. And then from Pax from VI says, on the police new salary structure, with the new minimum wage, will the new minimum wage be implemented with this new increment? A question hanging in the air. Levy from First Town says, I hope that increments would prevent them from collecting 50 naira from motorists.
For where? We've not even heard how much it is.
Yinka says, when Osun elections was about to commence, the police were paid their allowances beforehand. Some of us find that kind of suspicious because we know how a policeman behaves when you just make them happy with 1,000 naira. That's disparaging, guys. Yinka, please, let's refrain from that. This dude almost, okay, he continues with more detail that's personal. Big E from K2 says, good job and an act of good governance from the governor. However, his position should not be used for points for the APC because only heaven can help Osun State with us in so much debt. I think he's referring to the 6 months arrears salary that's being paid. And Tony Ayo from Ayobo said, it is sad to hear such amounts of soldiers die in such crazy attack. That story is not here. We are not looking at this at the moment. Amako Chimobi from Olodia Papa said, the increase of police salary is not the solution. Our police have lost their integrity with their strange art and passion to make money from any circumstance, and this goes a long way to undermine what they stand for. The truth is that our police need serious orientation to what they really stand for. We would love to take more of your messages, but we're out of time. We'll be back to treat one of these stories inside of Lagos Talks 981 at 9 o'clock. But coming up next in about 14 minutes, we'll talk entertainment inside the Grapevine. Special thanks to Analyst for coming in at Mr. FB Allison and at Devoe Okorie. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good morning.